हरे कृष्णा। वेलकम डिवोटीज इन टुडेज सेशन। जैसे कि हम सब जानते हैं कि आज लेवल 1 सेमिस्टर का 4th मॉड्यूल स्टार्ट होने जा रहा है। सेशन वाइज आज 13th सेशन है। प्रभुपाद का जो धर्म बुक है, श्रील प्रभुपाद का धर्म बुक है, उसके अंतर्गत इस स्पिरिचुअल साइंस, आई एम सॉरी, इस स्पिरिचुअलिटी साइंस और सेंटिमेंट, इस टॉपिक पर आज हमारा सेशन है। इस टॉपिक पर हमारे आज के स्पीकर है भक्त श्रीमान दीपू प्रभु जी। तो नाउ we'll have a melodious kirtan by Athar Prabhu ji. So let's chant loudly Hare Krishna Mahamantra for Athar Prabhu ji. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Welcome Athar Prabhu ji.
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी अभी कैमरा में थोड़ा प्रॉब्लम है मेरे, इसलिए मैं वीडियो ऑफ करके कीर्तन कराऊंगा।
ओके प्रभु जी, नो प्रॉब्लम।
ओके प्रभु जी। हरे कृष्ण। हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम राम हरे हरे। Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama
Hari
Hare
Bol.
Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for gifting us such a melodious kirtan. और जैसे कि हम सब जानते हैं और मैंने पहले भी कहा कि आज का जो टॉपिक है इस स्पिरिचुअलिटी साइंस और सेंटिमेंट, इस टॉपिक पर आज के हमारे स्पीकर है भक्त श्रीमान दीपू प्रभु जी. तो लेट्स हैव अ स्मॉल इंट्रोडक्शन अबाउट प्रभु जी. प्रभु जी पिछले 13 साल से इस्कॉन बेस के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं. प्रभु जी ने बीमटेक से अपना MBA कंप्लीट किया है. प्रभु जी ने कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर के अंदर बहुत सारे जगह पर जॉब किया है. प्रभु जी जो 13 साल पहले जो ग्रेटर नोएडा पर भगवत गीता कॉन्टेस्ट हुआ था, उसमें प्रभु जी ने बीमटेक के तरफ से लीड किए थे एज अ स्टूडेंट रिप्रेजेंटेटिव. एंड प्रभु जी बहुत ही हेल्पफुल है. विभिन्न इस्कॉन के कार्य जैसे कि बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन हो गया और नए भक्तों को जोड़ना हो गया, प्रभु जी इन सारे कार्यों में बहुत ही एक्सपर्ट है. So let's welcome Prabhuji by chanting aloud Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Welcome Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Clearly?
Yes, Prabhuji. Ekdam clearly.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I have done nothing in this. And thank you so much for the ecstatic kirtan by our Prabhuji. It was such a great voice, and Krishna bless you, Prabhuji. So I think we should start off with our today's session, which is spirituality a science or a sentiment? I'll share the screen. Please do let me know once the screen is visible to everybody.
Yes, Prabhuji, it's visible.
All right. So, just a second. So we all know this sweet bhajan, Bhajure mana Shri Nanda Nandana, Abhay Charana Arvindare, Durlabh Manav Janam Satsange, Tarahu Bhav Sindhure. So we should always keep this in mind, the meaning of this bhajan, the meaning of this kirtan, because one of the steps in bhakti is also to do a bhajan. So whenever you are alone, you should always recite a bhajan. Any bhajan that you like, you should always try different bhajans. So I'll just go through it once. Bhajaure mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhay Charana Arvindare Durlabh Manav Janam Satsange Tarahiye Bhav Sindhure. The essence of this paragraph here itself is Durlabh Manav Janam Satsange. So what does it mean? It means that, as we all know, the human birth, when you have this consciousness that you are a human being and you can make decisions, it is very durlabha. And to do a satsang and to get an opportunity to do a sadhu sangha or a satsanga or a bhajan, or just to know that there is God, that consciousness, because a lot of people don't believe in God. Animals don't have that consciousness that there is a God, there is a higher being. But being a human being and being a steady mind and understanding that there is a cause of all causes and it is being handled by somebody who is beyond this world, or maybe whom we cannot even measure in our mind, is very rare. This understanding has to be there throughout your lives. Coming back to our topic, that spirituality, is it a science or a sentiment? Most of you would like to believe that it is a sentiment, because whenever we speak about spirituality, whenever we speak about faith, whenever we speak about God, a lot of people feel attached to God only because of sentiments. This is what they believe, that unless and until I have an attachment with God, may it be a material attachment, may it be a spiritual attachment, they kind of miscalculate it as a sentiment. But yes, there has to be a sentiment, But that sentiment needs to be based on science. But then there is a debate. Should I believe in the sentiment or should I believe in the science? Is it a science or is it a sentiment? In the coming slides, we would get a clear distinction about spirituality being a science or a sentiment. Although we would like to believe, in fact, when I started, I won't say when I started, or when I kind of felt attracted towards God, I would want to believe that it was because of sentiment. But why was it a sentiment? It was my mistake to consider it as a sentiment. Because a lot of things were happening in my life, a lot of things were happening around me, which I was not able to get an answer for. The only thing I could understand was this is happening because of some supernatural power. I could have said it like that. But I could also reiterate it as it is happening because of somebody else, because of somebody else's will. When you plan something and it fails, only then you realize that there is somebody else in this world, or maybe beyond this world, who is actually planning things and circumstances for you. The only thing you have with you is your actions. You don't have the fruit. You don't have the results of your actions with you. It is with somebody else. You might act in the best possible way, but unless and until there is a will of the God involved in your results, you might find that the results are absolutely different from whatever you may have desired it. Only when something like this happens with you, you realize that there is somebody else who has actually designed the world, and we are not gods. A lot of times, when a person keeps getting successful in life, keeps getting everything that he wants, and a lot of his activities plan out or maybe act out in a way in which he desires, in his subconscious mind, he tends to feel that he's God. Because of his activities, things are being getting done in such and such way. Because of his activities, everything is getting done. So he has that propensity to believe himself as a God. Only when he fails and he falls down, he realizes that never was he what he was doing. It was not him. It was somebody else's will that he was acting in that way, and the results were never in his hand. Maybe the actions were always in his hands, but the results were never in his hands. So we might think that it is a sentiment which is the base of spirituality, but to make things much more clear, we would understand further how science is the base of spirituality. So again, as in the slide it says, these questions, they have a deep root of our existence. Because if we go back to the history of mankind, there is not even a single person who has not countered this question within himself. Why is he here? Who is he? Why is the world designed this way? What is this universe? Who is driving this world? Is he God, or is somebody else making them work in such a way, or maybe giving them these circumstances wherein they are supposed to work in a particular way and choose and make decisions and act in a particular way? So from time immemorial, these questions are deep rooted in our existence. And there are only two ways of understanding these questions. The first one is obviously science. In science, we realize these questions by mind and senses. As we know that science is based on the fact, it means those who have been students of science, maybe every one of us has been a student of science till a particular class, 9th or 10th, or maybe those who have opted for science beyond that as well, they understand that science cannot be theory. It is cumulative, it is measurable, and there has to be a proof of what is being done. Whenever we are conducting experiments in a chemistry lab, the amount of liquid, the amount of chemicals that we are putting in a test tube, or maybe if we are conducting an experiment of physics, we have to be accurate with our calculations. or maybe if we are doing a mathematical equation, even if there is a distraction or maybe deviation of 0.1 in a mathematical formula, the result gets amplified. It varies from what it was originally. So the science is based on facts, proofs, and measurements. As you can see in the screen, maybe chemistry students would understand this. Everybody would have read the Rutherford model, the electrons, the protons, how electrons revolve around the nucleus. And then we had all these equations of in our chemistry labs, which used to say that atoms are the smallest divisions of matter. They cannot be divided. And then various electrons and atoms mixed together and formed chemicals. So a very interesting fact, but we could actually measure, and we could also provide the outcome of all these equations precisely if we did the right calculations. So we had the calculations, we had the measurements, and every time if we did those calculations, if we repeated those calculations, the results would have been the same. So that is what science is all about. Whatever you do, the results would always be same if you put the same numbers. For example, 2 plus 2 will always give me 4. 2 plus 2 will never give me 22. So if I do it 100 times, 2 plus 2 will always give me 4, and 2 multiplied by 2 will always give me 4. Never on this earth will 2 into 2 give me 22. So if I try 1,000 times, if I go to England, if I go to America, and if I perform the equation there, 2 plus 2, it will always give me 4. Even in America, it will give me 4. Even in India, it will give me a 4. 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. So if you put the same things in a same manner, in a same equation, the results will always be the same, and that is what science is all about. So now we are coming back to our mainstream. 4 defects. What has science got to do with our defects? The logic here is, we as human beings have a lot of defects. But when we try to propagate a scientific theory and our own, as we say in Bhagavad Gita, it is Bhagavad Gita as it is. So there is no other commentary, no other human deviation which has been mixed in that Bhagavad Gita. It is as it is. There is nothing else. Meaning nobody else has put his own thoughts into it. It is how it was supposed to be. It is the similar way. But in scientific theories, what happens is, a person who may be biased to an idea, sometimes he might propagate his theories in form of experiments. I'll give you an example here. A lot of times in newspapers, you would read researches, or maybe on internet. Nowadays, people read very less newspapers. Maybe on the internet, if you're reading articles regarding health and hygiene, you would read that a lot of researchers have said that if you drink tea 3 times a day, you will feel healthy. A specific kind of tea is good for your health. Now leave aside this tea. A lot of doctors and researchers over the years have said, if you drink alcohol, maybe 5 ml a day, it will keep you healthy. So this is what research is all about. They are asking you to drink alcohol, and the alcohol industry is funding these researches so that people start consuming alcohol in small amounts. And then they will give it a title from a research laboratory that some doctor, some recognized doctor has done a research on alcohol, and he has said that if you drink 5 ml daily in the evening, you will feel healthy. For Krishna's sake, if you start running, if you start doing dance on kirtan every day, if you start chanting, that is also good for your health and mental health. If you do yogasanas every day, even that is good for your health. But what these guys will say is, if you drink alcohol 5 ml every day, it is good for your health. So this is what happens in scientific theories. If the theory is biased, if the person conducting this theory is being funded by a lobby, maybe the lobby of cigarette manufacturers, maybe a lobby of alcohol manufacturers, maybe a lobby of processed juice manufacturers, So they will say anything. I remember in the late 1940s or late 1950s in America, there was a research. If you go on the internet and you will search it, maybe in 1920s or 1930s it was there, and there used to be newspaper ads that if you smoke a Marlboro cigarette, you will be healthy. And it was associated with the lifestyle of a person. And there were various researches done by doctors who said smoking is good for your health. Believe me, in 1920s and 1930s, there were research in published in newspapers wherein doctors used to say smoking is good for your health. 30 years after that, they realized what we were saying is absolutely false and smoking is injurious to health. So if the person conducting these experiments is funded by a lobby, then these scientific experiments, the outcome is always biased and false because of human defects. Now we'll be reading the 4 defects that we already have in human beings. Imperfect senses. The first defect is imperfect senses. So as a human being, we only have the capacity to hear sounds which are in between 20 hertz and 20,000 hertz. We cannot hear infrasounds, we cannot hear ultrasounds. As in the slide, you would see that we lie somewhere between animals and elephants and cats and dogs. Even cats and dogs are maybe better than us in hearing something. Dolphins and bats are better than us in hearing something. But we as human beings, we are not able to do it. So the idea here is that a lot of things get filtered out from our hearing. And it happens in our day-to-day lives as well. We only hear the things that we want to hear. If some Prabhuji is telling us that you need to chant 16 rounds, you need to eat prasadam, you need to offer the bhoga to Lord Krishna first, you need to come to temple, or maybe you need to do service, you need to do this, you need to do that. He's maybe guiding us. We would only hear the things which we are interested in. Maybe we will not listen to each and everything that the Prabhuji is telling us, and this happens in our lives, in our corporate lives, in our family lives, with our friends, with our colleagues, everybody. We only want to speak, and in case if we hear something, we only want to hear the things which are good for us, and we filter out the negativities. Although that may be good sometimes, but that also filters out the important things that we need to hear. So we have imperfect senses. Even if we hear things, we do not understand properly what is being said. We need a person to specifically make us understand what is being said. For example, in Hindi, in our school times, we used to read a poem and then we had that bhavarth. Similarly, in Srimad Bhagavad Gita also, we have the shlok, then we have the purport, and then we have Prabhupada's commentary. So a shloka of 4 lines, sometimes the Prabhupada's commentary is 2 pages or maybe 3 pages, because small things mean a lot sometimes, and that is how what we hear sometimes means something different, and it is because of our imperfect senses we might actually understand something else what is being said. So we have imperfect senses, that is one of our defects. Second is we get illusioned very easily. I'll go back to my theory of ads. Whenever these ads were being given in the newspapers about alcohol or maybe cigarettes, or nowadays if you're watching television, you will find a lot of things where they want you to be illusioned by maybe assuming that if you drink such and such cola, you will be healthy. If you drink such and such cola, you will be happy. If you maybe do such and such toothpaste or maybe apply such and such deodorant, everybody will be flocking to you. And yes, we get illusion. What is being sold to us via internet, via the television, via various ads on the shops, via a lot of things, we get illusion. We believe that these things are good for us. Similarly, in life, a lot of things which are actually false, but we fall for them because of our human tendency of getting illusioned very easily. If you look at these pictures which are coming on, now look at this picture. If you keep staring at this picture, you will find Or maybe you will believe that the leaves are revolving in a particular direction, which is exactly not so. But if you keep staring, you would get a hint that the blue colored leaves are revolving. So there's a rotation in the circles. But it is not so. If you look keenly, the circles are stagnant. But we as human beings get illusioned very easily because of our eyes, and we tend to believe what we see. So this is again an example of this illusion of our senses. If you look at this picture, you will find maybe a boy looking sideways, maybe an iceberg. You might see a different thing and your friend might see a different thing. So this is what happens in our daily lives. If somebody is trying to make us understand something, we tend to believe in what we are hearing, but we might understand a very different alternative of what is being said. So this is how we get illusioned every day. This is how we get deep inside into the Maya every day. We see things, we get illusioned, and we keep getting deeper and deeper into the Maya without applying our common sense, without applying our brain, that there are people out there who are hell-bent on fooling us, who want us to be illusioned, who want us to stay in this rat race of materiality, who do not want us to think what is the purpose of us being here on this planet. Now look at this picture. There are two people looking at each other, two old people looking at each other. But if you look carefully, there are two people. One of them is holding a guitar. One of them is maybe holding something on his head. So at first sight, you might see something different. In the second sight, you might see something different. The third of our faults is that we easily commit mistakes. Now, what we do is we call it a human tendency, that we are human, we'll commit mistakes. Exactly. We are not perfect. We commit mistakes, and that is one of our faults. So if you're conducting a scientific experiment, we'll make mistakes, and probably we won't realize that we have made a mistake, and we will propagate that theory. As it is said, earlier it was believed that the pituitary and the master glands were considered as a vestige or a useless tissue in the human body, which later on has been discovered that it is not, and it is one of the most important areas of the brain which helps in meditation. The fourth propensity, the fourth defect is cheating propensity. We as human beings love to cheat people. If I believe in something wrong, I would love that my colleagues also fall into the same trap. So I would also want that if I don't have anything and somebody else has anything, I would want to have that in any way, even if I have to do something wrong about it. So this is cheating. A lot of times we speak lies. A lot of times you would hear that the government officials, the fund which is being released for the betterment of the poor people is being stored at the houses of these government officials, and they are enjoying their own life with it. Which could have been used for the betterment of people is being used by netas and politicians and everybody. So we as human beings want to cheat people. We never want to tell them the truth. There are business houses who want to cheat you of your hard-earned money so that they enjoy your money, and your money is not spent in something which is extremely important and better for your self-realization and better for your own personal good. But they would want your money. There are n number of business houses who want in and out. Like if you're watching TV nowadays, or maybe if you're reading ads on the internet, they would kind of propagate n number of things. Mutual funds, sahi hai. Invest your money in shares. Invest your money here. Invest your money here, and lose it. They would never tell you to invest your money somewhere where it gives you a spiritual. Although you should not be seeking a spiritual benefit out of donations or contributions, but they would never tell you to feed a devotee, or they would never tell you to feed a cow. They would never tell you to use your money wisely so that it can be used for maybe distribution of Bhagavad Gita, so that people could become Krishna conscious. They'll never tell you this. So cheating propensity is something which is inherent in all of the people. Even a lot of people never know that they're also inherent cheaters. It is just because of self-realization that you understand even you are doing something wrong, and you can overcome this cheating propensity by chanting, by sadhu sangha, by satsanga, by maybe traveling deep within you and understanding your faults. That is the only way of avoiding this propensity. But this is actually related to greed as well. As soon as you see something better with somebody else, you want to have that, maybe by hook or by crook. So these are these defects. What they basically do is, whenever you're doing something honestly, whenever you're carrying on a scientific research, and any of these defects pours into that research, the objective of that scientific research is completely nullified, because the outcome is biased. We have Albert Einstein here. What he says is, there is a perfect brain behind all the natural physical laws. Now keep this in mind. It is actually said, you would have heard a lot of scientific people, or maybe a lot of scientists who are atheists, who say, we believe in science and we don't believe in God. They'll say it very proudly that we are scientists, we don't believe in God. But scientists who have actually dedicated their life to science, at the end of their lives, they have come to a conclusion that science is a journey from no God to God. Or how we will say it, science is a journey from material consciousness to Krishna consciousness. Because the ulterior motive of science, when a person goes deep into the science, he realizes that the world, the universe, the entire cosmos cannot function without there being a cause of all causes, who is Krishna. Without somebody's superior will, the whole universe, the cosmos, even a leaf on a tree will not deviate unless and until there is a supreme will behind it. And that is what happens with scientists. Throughout their life, they dedicate their lives to science and they don't believe in God. But ultimately, when they're at the pinnacle of their achievements, when they're at the pinnacle of their maybe success, they realize that science is not possible without God, and God has a complete scientific logic. There is a superior power which is there, without whom this universe, this cosmos cannot function. And that is what is being said by all these scientists who actually said these things after they realized that whatever they were doing was scientific, and at the end, it is not possible without God. The universe must have existed. So there is Mr. Lord Kelvin. If you think strongly enough, you will be forced by science to believe in God. So these guys, they completed their journey from material to spiritual, from no God to God. So science is a journey from no God to God. Similarly with Isaac Newton. Now, Mr. Charles Darwin, who gave us the famous theory of evolution, a false famous theory of evolution, I must say. Heisenberg, he says, there is a higher power, not influenced by our wishes, which finally decides and judges. Which finally decides and judges. Now, this is coming straight out of Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna is the cause of all causes, who decides and judges people. And this person might not have read Bhagavad Gita in his entire life. He might not have attended Prabhupada's class even once. But then, because of science, at the end of his career, he realized that there is a higher power, which is not influenced by our wishes. We might wish anything, but it does not get influenced by our wishes, which finally decides and judges. So these guys have completed their journey from no God to God because of science. But in between, they would have been atheists. They would have believed in science. They would have told everybody that they are scientists and they don't believe in God. But at the end of it, they realized it's not possible. Whatever they have done, they realized that nothing in this universe is possible without there being a higher power or Krishna. Now, the second way, the first way was science. The second way is spirituality. Why we should believe in spirituality? Although spirituality in itself is a scientific process. We don't deviate, we don't say it is not a scientific process, we say it is a scientific process, but it is an honest scientific process. It is not a scientific process which is being funded by a lobby, which is being biased or mixed with our human defects. No, not exactly. Our spirituality is a science which is an honest science, which is untouched by any of the defects, which is untouched by ulterior motive of industries, ulterior motive of netas and politicians or countries. It is untouched by any of this defect, and our spiritual science is an honest experiment, or maybe an honest project. So, how do we do it in spirituality? In spirituality, we realize the scripture, the word of God. Scriptures are a word of God. As we know, spirituality is based on faith, and so is science. Spirituality and science, both of them are based on faith. Why? Because in science, there are n number of things that science has not been able to prove. For example, they don't know where the soul goes after the person is dead. They don't know how the soul comes inside the body. So they have to have faith that it goes somewhere. We in spirituality believe that we believe in the theory of reincarnation, that soul keeps traveling from one body to another body because of the karmas in the previous lives and the motives of the person. So science has to believe that soul is going somewhere and soul is coming from somewhere. They also have faith. In science, they could not prove what is holding sun and the planets together. They know that there is a sun, they know the planets revolve around the sun, so they have to have faith that there is something which is holding all the planets and all the constellations, all the galaxies together. There is something. So they are having faith that there is something. Similarly, spirituality is also having faith. But faith on what? Faith on word of the God. Our spirituality is not a mere sentiment, because a spirituality without science is a false community. I would say there are a lot of if you're looking what is happening around you, there are a lot of communities, there are a lot of faiths, there are a lot of so-called religions who are just based on complete sentiment, and there is no logic. So I won't want to comment on them, but if you argue with them or maybe debate with them, they would come up with something, and at the end of it, they would have nothing to prove why they are following a particular process in their religion. But what we do is, we have come to realize, due to scientific facts and proofs already done by our acharyas and already done by our sadhus, that our spirituality is based on faith in science, or maybe scientific logic. So now it's telling us the comparison between the both. Both try to understand absolute truth, cause of all causes, and both have similar approaches, exactly as has been described. There are two great commonality between science and spirituality. As we see, both begin with faith. Absolutely. A scientist, he has to have faith in something. He has to have a query in his mind, and then he conducts his experiments, then he conducts his research. But the research and experiments take years and years together, and then they come to a conclusion, and that is the faith that keeps him, or maybe her, together for all those years, that he will be achieving something, or maybe he will be achieving the results, or maybe he will be coming up with the theory. Both are based on faith. Both have same methodology. Both have calculations. Both. Now you should ask me, how does a spirituality work? As I said, science works in a same manner when the same equations are provided. So spirituality also works in the same way. If you tell about Krishna, and honestly, if you honestly and with love tell about the pastimes of Krishna to a person in India and to a person in maybe United States of America, both will react in the same way, and which has been already proven by Srila Prabhupada. He went to so many countries and there were so many devotees who accepted Krishna, who accepted love for Krishna, similar to what people in India did. So under same circumstances, with an honest effort, if a person does something in spirituality, it would definitely give same results. In science, we follow getting any truth by theory, experiment, and conclusion. In spirituality, we are the soul, spiritual world also exists. We come from a spiritual world that is explained by the word of God with scriptures. In spirituality, the theory is rebirth, reincarnation. In spiritual environment, experiments means practice and conclusion means finally we realize. So when we say a person is Krishna consciousness, it is the conclusion that yes, he has realized that Krishna is the call of all causes. Sarva karano kar Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidanand Vigraha Anadir Yadir Govinda Sarva karano karana. So whatever is being done, the cause of all causes is Krishna. Once you realize this, so the conclusion is met. You might have a different conclusion to your life if you get the love of Krishna finally, that is something separate. But if you in your mind completely believe that Krishna is the call of all causes, most of your scientific project is done. So what do people say? Why do they have understanding of God? Why do they have understanding God should be removed from this picture. So what do they do to make us believe that there is no God? What it says is they would do a lot of things to make us believe that there is no God. And for such false philosophy, they propagated a lot of theories. The first was the chance theory. The second was the Big Bang theory. And the third is the evolution theory. All of us have read these theories in our school, but we also believed in these theories and we also maybe wrote a lot of exams based on these theories. But seldom did we understand that these are just a propaganda being run by people who want us not to believe in God, who want us to question God's existence. Because we as human beings, we are inquisitive. When we think about God, a lot of us would go to the root cause. And a lot of us would actually understand God and know that there is a higher power who is actually controlling the entire universe. But what this lobby wants us to believe that there is no God. They want us to believe that the world is created by chance. They want us to believe that we were monkeys. They want us to believe that there was an explosion in the universe and everything started getting created. The world started getting created. Humans started getting created. The universe is ever expanding. There are lots of constellations and galaxies, and it all started with the Big Bang. Who did the Big Bang? They don't know this. But they've just assumed it. There was a Big Bang. Nobody heard the Big Bang. There is no proof of the Big Bang. But they'll tell you, initially there was a Big Bang and everything started getting created. And these guys, they have installed a lot of telescopes in the universe to actually look at different parts of the universe and understand what is happening. And if they had actually read the scriptures, the fun fact I'll tell you, our scriptures, thousands of years before all this technology, maybe 5,000, 8,000 years ago, maybe 10,000 years ago, we had already come up with the concept that there is a sun and there are n number of planets revolving around the sun. And very lately, maybe 150 years ago or maybe 100 years ago, there was a person named Galileo who invented a telescope and he looked at the planets and he said, there are planets moving around the sun. So he was being credited by this theory, by this discovery. But we had already stated this. And how did we state this? Because it was the word of God. It was written in scriptures. It was a lot of prayers. There are a lot of prayers to the deities of various planets. A lot of prayers happen to Mangal Devta, Jupiter. We consider Jupiter as the Dev Rishi. So we had already in our scriptures, every planet, every galaxy had been mentioned earlier, and we believed in that. But these guys, they're installing telescopes to find other planets, and their telescope also has defects because it is a human-made telescope. It cannot see beyond a particular range. But if you believe in the scripture, if you believe in scriptures, not only one constellation, not only one galaxy, our scriptures tell us very detailed theories about a lot of galaxies, a lot of planets, a lot of universes altogether. So let's get to the theories that we have been always told, and that most of us have been misled by. First is the chance theory. So what happens in the chance theory is it correlates with probability, the chance of an event happening, the chance of an accident happening. In math, chance means the event is observable and repeatable. So a lot of times, if we remember maybe 9th or 10th mathematics, we would have questions like, if you have a deck of cards, what is the probability the card of queens would be coming out of? If you take out 4 cards, and what is the probability that one of them would be a card of queens? So this correlates with the chance theory. So what they tell you is entire universe, it is by chance that it is there. We human beings have been created by chance. Animals have been created by chance. But what they don't answer is what happens when they die? And who created them? And how does a soul travel inside the body? Because that is a fact, that a difference between a dead body and a living body is a soul. So they don't have these answers for what happens to the soul. They would want you to believe that everything that is happening, it is by chance. So if it is by chance, then why not live your life? Why go to these achieving material extents, material superiorities? You should enjoy and live your life then, if it is by chance, because you won't have it again. Again, the second one, it is the Big Bang theory. That earlier there was nothing, then suddenly there was an explosion, and then galaxies and planets and black holes and everything started getting created on its own. And it is again by chance that our Earth was created, then galaxies are created in a perfect shape, and the planets and the solar systems were created in a perfect harmony, wherein the planets are revolving in a perfect periodic arrangement around the sun. And same is the case with galaxies, which are traveling in the universe at a perfect periodic arrangement. So they say that it was a Big Bang theory. Now, if you go to the Big Bang theory, we all celebrate Diwali. So what happens is, when we celebrate Diwali, there are some messages that have been in the box. Let me just check it. So sorry. Please mark your attendance, whoever is there. It is the message by the admin. So we all celebrate Diwali, and if you have ever used those bombs, those green colored bombs, if you burn it, it creates a lot of sound, and at the end of it, nothing of it remains, and it goes in every direction haphazardly. So these guys, what they're telling you is to believe in an explosion, a Big Bang explosion, and then everything has been created very symmetrically. Now, what I don't get here is, if there was an explosion, everything should have been haphazard. There should have been collisions between planets. There should have been collisions between everything. Everything should have been destroyed. Have you ever thought, how can an explosion create something? An explosion always destroys things. So these guys want us to believe that there was an explosion, and then the constellations and the galaxies and the planets like Earth, Mars, Venus, everything was created in a perfect harmony. So imagine, an explosion created something which is in perfect harmony. If you understand the harmony of our solar system, which has 9 planets, not even one planet is colliding with other planet, and it has its own equal orbit where it rotates. apart from the planets, every planet has a moon. Planet like Jupiter and Saturn, they have 14 to 15 moons which constantly revolve around them, and none of them ever collide with each other. But these guys want us to believe that a Big Bang explosion created everything, and everything by chance is in a perfect state of harmony. Now, this is a laughable thing, that you would want us to believe that an explosion created everything and suddenly everything started running in harmony. The sun is not falling down, the moons are not falling down, the planets are not colliding, and everything was created by an explosion. So this is what they want us to believe. The third is the theory of evolution, which we have been reading since our childhood, that we were all monkeys. Now this has gone deep into our psyche. We have been told that we were monkeys, we have evolved from monkeys, we have evolved from apes, to use the right word. But then this theory is so laughable that I personally never understood how we evolved from apes, because apes still exist. Because they also tell us that because of theory of evolution, giraffes have a very long neck. Earlier, they used to have a very short neck. But over 500 years, over 1,000 years, the giraffes in Africa, they kept stretching their necks to eat the leaves of the trees, and they evolved themselves. And every giraffe now has a very long neck. Now that is absolutely understandable, because you never find giraffes with short necks. They evolved. Exactly. So when human beings came from apes, the apes shouldn't have been there, because the apes got evolved into human beings. But we still find the apes. And even by their theory of chance or probability, you have never seen an ape or a monkey giving birth to a human baby, or maybe a human giving birth to a monkey. Because if we are so closely related, there should have been n number of cases of apes or monkeys or gorillas or chimpanzees giving birth suddenly to a human baby. But that is not happening. Or maybe a human being is giving birth to a chimpanzee. It's also not happening, because we are not related. But they would want you to believe that we came from apes. And if apes have already evolved, why are still monkeys there? Why are chimpanzees there? Why are gorillas there? If they evolved, they shouldn't have been there. Secondly, you would never find the fossils of any of the in-period Homo sapiens. They say that the apes got evolved, and then there were 4 categories of apes, and finally the human being came in. So you won't find fossils of everybody. You will find the fossils of apes, you find the fossils of human beings, but the in-between, in-period human beings or Homo sapiens, you will never find them. So this is again a laughable theory given to us, propagated in our minds, and we have been told that we were apes and now we are monkeys. Earlier we were uncivilized, now we are civilized. So we should believe that there is no God, because we came from apes, and the apes came from reptiles, and the reptiles came from the sea. So if you keep believing them, they'll give you n number of theories why not to believe in God, or maybe why to believe in a God which they have created. They would create gods out of human beings, and then they would want you to worship them. A lot of cases have been recently come in India wherein some so-called saintly person would stand up and say, "I am God." And there would be a number of people bowing down at his feet and offering pranams and offering all their wealth to him. They would go to the graveyard in Shridi or maybe somewhere, and then they'll offer everything to a person whom they say he's God. So they would want you to believe that such and such person was God, such and such fakir was God, such and such was God. Go and give your wealth to him. Go and give your spiritual wealth to him. Go and give your mind wealth, mental wealth to him. Apart from the material wealth, you also offer him your mental wealth, your time, your mind, everything. So these people never want us to actually understand who the real God is, who is actually behind, who is the cause of all causes, who is actually behind this entire universe functioning in such a sweet harmony. Now again, by these facts we can understand that science also depends upon faith, not fact, because our science is incomplete. Although whatever we have achieved in science, we would say that it is because of facts, but 99.99% of our science is incomplete. As I had given the example of, they never know where the soul goes. They never know why is sun not falling down. They never know why are the planets not falling down. There was this COVID and they never knew how this virus came in. They're still fighting this virus and it keeps generating itself. It keeps modifying itself. So we are a pandemic away from complete destruction. If tomorrow something else comes in, a lot of people would die and the science would remain incomplete. Now, by these facts, we can understand that spirituality is actually science and not sentiment. So again, it says, if the results applied with same condition, irrespective of who is applying or in which place it is being applied, the results would be similar. So same is the process with spirituality. Wherever it is applied with an honest effort, the results would be the same, may it be in India or may it be in America. It says example is in front of our eyes, how people were transformed in USA, Africa and Russia. And here they are speaking about the transformation of non-devotees to devotees, people who accepted Krishna consciousness. People who were drug addicts were completely purified. You all know this story. If you have read Prabhupada's books, if you have read Prabhupada's biography, you would know. If you are into, if you come to the temple, if you have watched all Prabhupada's movies, you would know how he started with very bare essentials and how people came to him and how those were drug addicts who only came for the prasadam because they were hungry. They used to take drugs. They used to come into the temple to have prasadam because they had nowhere else to go. Most of them started liking the prasadam. They also stayed for the kirtan. Once they did the kirtan, they found it to be such sweet. They found it to be such ecstatic that they completely changed their lifestyle, their attitudes, their drug addiction, everything got nullified. So these are the pictures of the earliest devotees who were actually on drugs and LSDs, but who used to come to Prabhupada to listen to what he's saying. Actually, they came in for the prasadam, but Prabhupada deliberately said, give them prasadam. Let them come for the prasadam. They will develop taste for the prasadam, and then they will develop taste for the kirtan, and then they will develop love for God, love for Krishna. So these are all the Western devotees who used to come to Prabhupada, and he used to initiate them after a specific process. Now, we say spiritual life is not a blind faith. We can see the tangible results as described in Vedic literatures. So everything has a result. If you perform an activity perfectly, honestly, it will give a specific result. So a man in his interview, Prabhupada was lecturing somewhere, a man asked Prabhupada, so you say you are associated with God, you're the servant of God, can you show me a miracle? You need to show me a miracle, we want proofs. So Prabhupada replied, thousands of Malechas. Who are the Malechas? Prabhupada used to call these Western people Malechas, specifically those people who used to have drugs, who used to have meat, who used to do all sorts of irregular activities, illicit sex, gambling. They used to have a lot of meat, alcohol, everything, and they were not worthy of devotion. He used to call them Malechas, but because of their bhakti, because of the love for God, they got transformed. And a lot of them became senior devotees with Prabhupada. So it is in itself a miracle. So a lot of people, this is the same gang who wants you not to believe in God. So what they do is sometimes they would want you to believe in God. As I said, they would want you to believe that such and such person is God. So go and give everything to him. So what they will tell you is, come on, I'll show you where is God. Just give me some money and I'll fix a meeting between you and God. So it is similar to somebody telling you, in 1 hour, I'll teach you entire mathematics. In 1 hour, I'll teach you entire chemistry. So a person with common sense, he would definitely understand that person is making a fool out of him, because learning mathematics is a process. First, you have to learn the numbers. Then you have to learn the tables. Then you have to learn the arithmetic. Only then you would be able to multiply, divide, or maybe do lot of mathematical equations. And even that too after learning the formulas. So it is a complete process. And you cannot straight away start with the mathematical formulas. You would have to start with the basic numbers first. So it goes from stage 1, then stage 2, then stage 3. The stage 10, it doesn't come at stage 1. So you would have to start with numbers and then go to mathematical equations and formulas. You cannot simply start off with mathematical equations and formulas. So it has a first step, then second step, then third step, and gradually you increase and become a master. Similarly, if somebody tells you, okay, come on, give me 10,000 rupees, and he's dressed like a yogi, and he'll tell you, give me 10,000 rupees and I'll give you a darshan of Lord here itself. There are a lot of people who will tell you, I'll make you the master of yoga in 1 hour, or I'll make your Kundalini arise in 1 hour. Just come here, give me some money, and I'll just bless you, and you will be a spiritual person. So you would have, by your understanding, to understand that these are all thugs, and nobody can give you God or maybe God conscious without a proper process. So the scientific process of devotional service, what is it? So those who have read about Prahlad Maharaj, they would know that there is Navada Bhakti. Navada Bhakti means 9 types of devotions. And it is said, a person who actually masters any one of the 9 types of devotions, he has succeeded in his life. He succeeds in this life, and he has complete knowledge of God, and he becomes completely conscious, and he finds the love of God. Any one of the 9 types of bhaktis. What are these 9 types of bhaktis? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam, Atmanivedanam. So the earlier masters and earlier Maharaj, they would have been the ones who would have maybe become masters of all types of 9 bhaktis. In this Kali Yuga, if we master even one, we will find the complete and true love of God. Shravanam means hearing the names of God. Like Prahlad Maharaj was hearing about God, and he heard the complete Bhagavatam from Shukdev Goswami, and he heard it in such a way with complete faith. A lot of us keep hearing bhajans and kirtans, but mostly what we do is we listen to it and we move on. So hearing means when you hear something and it goes inside you, maybe straight away goes to your heart, and your soul, your heart reciprocates with it. So the names of God have to be heard and have to be reciprocated with. That is how the process of Shravanam goes. It's not just hearing and moving on, because you might hear 10 number of things at any time. But if you're hearing the name of God, just absorb it deeply inside you and reciprocate with that name. So whenever we are chanting, we are being told that whatever you are chanting, whenever you are chanting, you have to chant in such a way that you hear your chanting. You should not just keep chanting and chanting and chanting. Whenever you are chanting, you have to hear what you are chanting, so that you are also doing smaranam. You are remembering God by the way of chanting, but you are also doing shravanam. You are also listening to it, and it goes deep inside you. The second is kirtanam, chanting about the holy names from the qualities and transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Kirtanam, we always, Prabhuji did a very static kirtan at the beginning of this class. So whenever you're free, just start doing kirtanam. And kirtanam is a way of expressing love towards God by chanting his pastimes. And it is one of the best ways of developing love for God. Smaranam, remembering the name of Lord. Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet of Lord, just like Mata Lakshmi does it with Narayana. Archanam, worshipping Lord. Vandanam, praying to Lord, offering prayers to the Lord. Dasyam, considering yourself as the servant of God, and Lord Hanuman is the perfect example how he despite being such powerful, despite being such knowledgeable, was always considering himself that he is the servant of God and nothing beyond that, and he was so humble. Sakhyam, considering God as your friend, but understanding that he is your best friend. Who is the best friend? A person who actually is your well-wisher, is your best friend. So we always categorize friends. There are simple friends who never think about us. There are good friends whom we reciprocate and sometimes they reciprocate. Then there are best of friends who actually don't want anything from us, but they're always our well-wishers and always are there to help us and always are there to guide us. So God is our best friend. You should understand that God is always there. You may not see him, but he's always there. And he's waiting for you to reciprocate to him. And he guides us every time like a best friend. Atmadivedanam, complete surrender to the will of God. So these are the 9 types of bhakti. Attaining Krishna is a gradual step-by-step process and not an abrupt magical achievement. This is what people would want you to believe, that this is a magical achievement. They can deliver God to you within 1 hour. It is never possible. So the 9 steps of devotion, how does it start? It starts with Shraddha, basic faith in God. Okay, there is God. Let me try to have faith in him. Then it keeps on developing when you have sadhu sangha. We call it association of pure devotees, because if you are doing something wrong, the other devotee will catch hold of you. When you are in a group, whatever you are missing, the others will nullify it and they'll compensate whatever you're lacking, and you will compensate what somebody else is lacking. Association of devotees always gives you that energy, always keeps you in that positivity of the mind. And in the peer pressure, you do a lot of things which maybe when you are alone, you might not be able to do. So it is always said you need to have association of devotees. Try to get association of devotees. Bhajan Kriya, performance of devotional service, bhajans, getting rid of unwanted habits, then nishtha, steadiness in practice, ruchi, higher taste. When you are at the 6th stage, you tend to develop taste for things which are higher in spirituality. Then asakti, attachment to devotional service. There comes a time when you yourself miss a lot of things, and if you somehow miss a devotional process in your daily life, you feel bad because you are used to it now. Once you are on the stage 7, you are used to a lot of things: chanting, kirtan, association. Or if any one of them is maybe absent for a couple of days, you tend to feel for it. Then feeling for God, you tend to love kind of blossoms from your heart towards God, and you tend to create a relation with him, whatever the relation, but it starts blossoming at this stage. And then at the end of it, you tend to attain pure love of Krishna. So the 9 stages of devotional service are actually categorized in transcendental consciousness and material consciousness. So the material consciousness is manomaya, pranamaya, anamaya. So those who are interested in yoga, they would understand these manomaya kosh, pranamaya kosh and anamaya koshes. But there is a transcendental consciousness, which is the highest being anandamay, the middle one being vijanyamay, and the first one being jnanamay. Because of jnanamay, what happens is you start doing bhajan, sadhu sangha, and shraddha. When you keep doing these things, when you keep doing bhajan, when you are into association, and when you have that basic faith, you become a kanisht adhikari. But what happens is jnanamay kosh develops in you. Now this is a higher stage of yoga, a spiritual yoga that comes in. What is jnanamay kosh? If you are interested in bhakti yoga or maybe in Hatha yoga, you would understand that our body is actually, there are a lot of auras and our body is divided into a lot of parts. So a particular activity has its after effects on a lot of our other things. I'll give you a basic example. If you keep chanting, your meditation becomes very good, your meditating power becomes good, your memory becomes good. So a lot of things are interrelated. So similarly, you are a madhyam adhikari. When you develop when you develop anartha vritti, removal of offenses, nishtha, ruchi, asakti, it comes into self-realization. And finally, prema and bhava, what they give you is they develop an anandamaya kosh inside you. They keep you in a state of bliss, in a state of happiness, and this happiness is without any causes. You're just happy with yourself. You don't need anything to be happy. When you have realized the love of God, you don't need that mobile phone, expensive dress, tasty food, whatever you will have, you will be happy with it, because you would have understood the love of God, and you would have understood that there is nothing more important and more sweet than the love of God, and you would be ever happy. So here it is said, O Sakhi, in separation from Govinda, even a moment seems like a millennium. Tears begin to shower from my eyes like rain from the clouds, and this entire world seems white. This is the bhav of Radharani, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing in his pastimes. So it is a very deep bhav that even a second of separation from Govinda, Krishna, it feels like 12 years. So when you have that love for him, it actually reciprocates in our lives, because those who have babies or those who have children, they would understand if children are separate from them maybe for 2 or 3 days or a week, they feel for their children. Or if whenever we were kids and our parents used to be away, we used to feel for our parents. Maybe who are in the youth and who are getting married, or maybe who are newly married, they would be maybe wanting the company of their spouse. So we have these, but we have it temporary and they are material in nature, which is short period. But the love of Krishna, it is transcendental, and it is beyond this world and beyond n number of incarnations that we've already had. So if you somehow get this feeling that even a second of separation from Krishna is maybe like 12 years, so that is when you develop complete love of God. It was the feeling of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he used to be completely destroyed, or maybe completely he used to be in a state where he used to lose himself when he used to think about the separation from Krishna. Now, Shishtashtaka explains various stages of advancement as a result of chanting the holy name of Lord. It will happen to anyone who chants without offenses. There are a lot of offenses while we chant. So we are always told that you should avoid name offenses, chanting offenses. What are these offenses? To blaspheme devotees who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name. Sometimes because of jealousy, we tend to point fingers at devotees who have actually dedicated a lot of time in spreading Krishna consciousness, because of a jealousy, because of the so-called human defects that we'd already have. To consider the names of demigods like Shiva or Brahma to be equal to or dependent to the name of Lord Vishnu. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. To blaspheme Vedic literature or literature in the pursuance of Vedic version. A lot of institutions like JNU or maybe a lot of colleges, they have a lot of leftist people who will tell you that the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita is false. So you don't have to actually listen to those people. You have to be inquisitive yourself. By your logic, by your understanding, you have to figure out. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination, a lot of people will tell you, why do you chant? It's a waste of time. So this is a blasphemy. This is kind of the Nam Aprada that we say. To give some mundane interpretation on the holy name of Lord, there'll be a lot of people who will tell you, no, don't chant this way, let's chant that way, because this way you will get benefits much faster. So a lot of people will come to you and tell you a lot of things. To commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of Lord, you can tell people that I am a sadhu, I am doing this, come give me money. So people will maybe believe you and give you money, and you misuse it. So this is a sinful activity. To consider chanting of the holy name to be one of the auspicious ritualistic activities offered in Vedas as fruitative activities. So it's again the same thing. To instruct a faithless person about the glories of holy name. So now this is confusing. To instruct a faithless person, we are always told to distribute Bhagavad Gita, distribute Krishna consciousness. But if you come across a person who, despite you trying or giving your efforts and telling him about Krishna consciousness, is you find it very difficult to propagate through him, you should move ahead. It's not your responsibility for him to be maybe out of this. It's not your responsibility for him to be self-realized. You gave him the Bhagavad Gita. You tried to convince him about Krishna. It is up to Krishna to decide if he is worthy of it. You should not waste time on such people. To not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names and to maintain material attachment even after understanding so many instructions on the matter. So this is when you have asakti towards devotion, when you have faith and love towards devotion, all your negativities would slowly leave you and you would become a pure devotee. But it happens because of your faith in God. Once you have that faith, you yourself would need to restrict a lot of your things and completely surrender to God. To be inattentive when chanting the holy name. As I said earlier, it is said that whenever you chant, you need to listen to it. It is not that you keep chanting and chanting and chanting and everybody, you are listening to the songs and you're listening to people chant, maybe chatting, you're listening to everything, but you're just chanting. So that is also a nama prad. You should try to avoid it as far as possible. You should, whenever you're chanting, you should try to concentrate on whatever, on the name of Lords, on the Krishna, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Spirituality is meant to help us develop love for God. Spiritual usually refers to the experience of the higher, deeper aspects of life. Exactly. So here it is concluded that what we need to do is Bhakto ki sangati karna, Bhagwan Krishna ki seva mein lagna, Srimad Bhagavad ka पाठ करना, भगवान के पवित्र नाम का कीर्तन करना तथा वृंदावन या मथुरा में निवास करना. यदि कोई इन 5 वालों में से किसी एक में थोड़ा भी असर होता है तो उस बुद्धिमान व्यक्ति का कृष्ण के प्रति सुहृद प्रेम क्रमश जागृत हो जाता है. चैतन्य चरितामृत. So this was all about our session today. Is spirituality a science or a sentiment? I believe I've tried to give my best to you so that you understand how it is a science and how, if you're discussing about it, if you're telling people about it, you just don't have to tell them to have faith. You just have to prove by reading Prabhupada's books and tell anybody. And first of all, you yourself need to understand that it is a scientific spiritual process. Attaining love for God is a scientific spiritual process which happens step by step, and there are 9 types of devotions. There are the bhakti has 9 other ways how you do it, but you need to have shraddha yourself. You need to understand yourself how it is a scientific process, and only then you can give that logic to somebody else. So Hare Krishna to all of you. Thank you so much for coming to this session today.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving us your most precious time and your golden word. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And there is some announcement for us कि ये जो लेवल 1 सेमेस्टर का 4th मॉड्यूल है, यही इस सेमेस्टर का लास्ट मॉड्यूल है. तो प्लीज अपने क्लास अटेंटिवली फॉलो कीजिएगा. एंड एट द लास्ट ऑफ दिस मॉड्यूल देयर विल बी अ रिव्यू सेशन, जहां एकदम स्टार्टिंग से लेकर के एंड तक सब कुछ टॉपिक कवर किया जाएगा. एंड देन द फाइनल इवोल्यूशन विल कंडक्ट. और अगर आप में से कोई भी कुछ भी और कोई इवोल्यूशन मिस किए हो तो प्लीज ग्रुप एडमिन से कांटेक्ट कीजिएगा एंड अपना इवोल्यूशन कंप्लीट कीजिए. तो हरे कृष्णा.
Hare Krishna. All glories to the attending devotees. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
भक्त श्रीमान दीपू प्रभु जी की जय.
तो devotees, अगर आप में से किसी का अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है तो आप अभी प्रभु जी से पूछ सकते हैं.
Yes, I would like to entertain questions. If you have any questions, please. Rituraj Prabhuji, please tell me.
मेरे पास असल में 2 क्वेश्चन थे. पहला क्वेश्चन तो ये कि जैसे कि नाम अपराध में आपने बोला कि एक अपराध है कि अगर हम हरिनाम करते हैं और उस समय पर अगर हमें कोई मटेरियल अटैचमेंट है तो उससे नाम अपराध होता है. लेकिन सब असल में एक अटैचमेंट से पहले तो उसका अटैचमेंट मेरे अंदर फिर से आ गया है. तो और वो अटैचमेंट के लिए मेरा हरिनाम हरि कथा सब कुछ छूट गया है और मैं अभी फिर से रिस्टार्ट कर रहा हूँ मेरा स्पिरिचुअल. तो इससे तो मेरा अटैचमेंट से तो है ही. तो इससे तो हर बार मैं हरिनाम करूंगा, हर बार मतलब नाम अपराध
नहीं नहीं नहीं, आप
कैसे होगा?
यस यस यस, देखिए ये नाम अपराध हमें बोला है यहाँ पे अटेंटिव रहने के लिए चैंटिंग के टाइम पे। अगर जो मुझे समझ पा रहा है, आपकी आवाज थोड़ी कट रही थी, आप कह रहे हो कि बाय चांस अगर मैं अटेंटिव नहीं रह पाया या छूट गया कभी तो कैसे होगा फिर, तो मुझे करना ही है। तो देखिए, कृष्णा इज देयर इन योर हार्ट, ही नोज। आप जो चैंटिंग कर रहे हैं, आप मुझे दिखाने के लिए चैंटिंग नहीं कर रहे हैं, आप किसी प्रभु जी को दिखाने के लिए चैंटिंग नहीं कर रहे हैं, आप सिर्फ कृष्णा के लिए चैंटिंग कर रहे हैं, ठीक है। तो बोला ये गया है कि यू ट्राई योर बेस्ट कि आप हमेशा ऐसे चैंट ना करें कि सिर्फ आप चैंट कर रहे हैं और आप इधर उधर की बातें सुन रहे हैं। लेकिन कभी आपसे छूट जाए और आप कभी मेट्रो में चैंट कर रहे हैं जहां आवाज आ रही है, या कभी ट्रेन में चैंट कर रहे हैं जहां आवाज आ रही है, आपका उस पर कोई काबू नहीं है। बिकॉज यू अर्लियर ना, वी आर ह्यूमन बीइंग्स, वी हैव डिफेक्ट्स, वी मेक मिस्टेक्स, कभी छूट गया, कभी कुछ हो गया। बट द थिंग इज योर इंटेंशन इज कि अरे मेरा जाप छूट गया है, मुझे 2 जाप जरूर करना है, कैसे भी करना है। तो यस, योर इंटेंशन इज गुड एंड कृष्णा अंडरस्टैंड्स दैट। और अगर आप चैंट करते हुए कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि मैं जो चैंट कर रहा हूं उसे सुन रहा हूं, जो मैं चैंटिंग जितना भी मैं कर रहा हूं उसे सुनने की कोशिश कर रहा हूं, तो आपका जो इंटेंशन है वो कृष्णा को पता है, मुझे नहीं पता, दूसरे प्रभु जी को नहीं पता, लेकिन आपको, मे बी आपको पता है और कृष्णा को पता है, तो दैट इज मोर देन इनफ। बट दैट डजंट मीन कि अगर आप चाहते हो कि आप चैंटिंग सुबह कर सकते हैं, आपके पास टाइम है अकेले में करने का, कैसे भी करने का, आप उसको जानबूझ के छोड़ के उसी टाइम पे चैंट करें कि जब आप भीड़ भड़ाके में हैं। बिकॉज वी आर, बहुत सारे लोग स्टूडेंट्स हैं, बहुत सारे लोग कॉर्पोरेट्स में नौकरी कर रहे हैं, बहुत सारे लोग लेट आते हैं ऑफिस से, 8-8, 9-9 बजे आते हैं, बहुत सारे लोग सुबह 7 बजे ऑफिस के लिए निकल जाते हैं, बहुत ट्रैवल करना पड़ता है। कृष्णा नोज दिस, तो ही जस्ट लुक्स एट योर सिंसियर एफर्ट। अगर आपके पास टाइम था अकेले में चैंट करने का, आराम से चैंट करने का, आपने चैंट किया, वेरी गुड। आपके कुछ राउंड्स छूट गए जो आप चाहते हो दिन में कहीं पे चैंट करना, लेकिन भीड़ भड़ाका है, कुछ है, कृष्णा नोज योर सिंसियर एफर्ट, आपको किसी और को दिखाने की जरूरत नहीं है। ही इज इनसाइड योर हार्ट, he is Govinda who is inside your heart. So don't worry about it. If your intention is sincere, you can go ahead with it. But try your best to complete your rounds whenever you are alone, or whenever you can, not exactly alone, but तब जब आप उस पर ध्यान दे पाए, जितना उस टाइम हो सके उतना कर लीजिए, जितना भी हो सके, बाकी आप करते रहें, वो भी अच्छा है। कृष्णा knows your intention. दूसरा क्वेश्चन आप पूछ लीजिए।
थैंक यू प्रभु जी। प्रभु जी, मेरा आवाज अभी क्लियर आ रहा है?
बिल्कुल प्रभु जी, आ रहे, क्लियर आ रहे।
प्रभु जी, मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था कि जैसे कि जनवरी में ये हुआ था कि मतलब मैं भक्त में आने से पहले मतलब जो जापान के जो एनिमेशन होते, मतलब एनीमे, में उसे बहुत देखता था। मतलब जैसे कि लोग मूवी सिनेमा देखते हैं, मेरा एडिक्शन था एनीमे के प्रति। तो
आपका
फिर
एडिक्शन
भक्त में
था
आने के बाद,
एनिमेशन देखना?
हाँ
जी।
तो जनवरी में वो एडिक्शन फिर से आ गया था मेरे अंदर। और सच कहूं तो ये मेरे गलती के कारण ही ये आया है। तो इसके लिए मैं अभी, मुझे बुरा भी लगता है, और इसके लिए ये हुआ है कि जनवरी से अभी तक मेरा हरिनाम, हरिकथा सब कुछ छूट गया। और मैं अभी कह सकता हूँ कि मैं फिर से रिस्टार्ट करना चाहता हूँ मेरा स्पिरिचुअल लाइफ। तो मैं फिर से कैसे रिस्टार्ट करूँ? एक और कि जैसे कि मेरा तो एडिक्शन है ही, और एडिक्शन रहने के प्रति, क्योंकि जैसे कि आपने बोला कि हरिनाम, अगर हम मेटेरियल अटैचमेंट बनाए रखें और हरिनाम करें तो ये एक नाम अपराध होता है। तो इस अगर मैं जब भी नाम करूँ तो उससे तो हर बार मुझे नाम अपराध लगेगा। तो इससे
नहीं
नहीं,
नहीं,
तो
बिल्कुल नहीं। देखिए, आपका कुछ भी एडिक्शन है, इसीलिए बोला गया है, आप मेरी बात मानिए और उसे लिख के ले लीजिए। कुछ भी एडिक्शन आपके पास है वो कृष्णा हर लेंगे, लेकिन आपका ड्यूटी ये बनता है कि आप ज्यादा से ज्यादा एसोसिएशन में बैठे, ज्यादा से ज्यादा डिवोटीज के साथ रहें, ज्यादा से ज्यादा सेवा करें, जितना आपका फीजिबल होता है। अगर आप स्टूडेंट हैं, अगर आप नौकरी करते हैं, वहां पे तो आपको करना ही है, पढ़ाई तो आपको करना ही है, स्कूल कॉलेज आपको जाना ही है। लेकिन उसके अलावा जितना भी आपका स्पेयर टाइम है, आप कोशिश कीजिए कि एसोसिएशन में रहें, टेंपल में रहें, बेस में जाएं, डिवोटीज के साथ रहें। जितना आप डिवोटीज के साथ रहेंगे, आपके जितने भी गलत कुछ भी जो आपको लगता है कि कोई गलत एडिक्शन हो गया है, वो हट जाएगा। और दूसरी चीज, आप कह रहे हो कि आपको दोबारा स्टार्ट करना है, मैं आपसे ये कहता हूं कि ह्यूमन लाइफ हमें पता नहीं 1000 बार इनकारनेशन है हमारा, 1000 1,00,000 रीबर्थ है, तो वी आर डूइंग इट अगेन एंड अगेन एंड अगेन। अगर आपके अंदर ये कॉन्शियसनेस आ चुकी है कि नहीं मुझे दोबारा स्टार्ट करना है, दैट इज मोर देन इनफ। बट गिव वो दोबारा भी फॉल होगा तो दोबारा उठ के खड़े हो जाइए। स्पिरिचुअलिटी इज ऑल अबाउट फॉलिंग डाउन एंड गेटिंग अप। तो अगर आपको रियलाइज हो गया कि मेरे अंदर कोई एडिक्शन आ गया है, ये आ गया है, तो उसे कैसे हटाऊं? अकेले में नहीं हटा पाओगे। आपको डिवोटीज का एसोसिएशन, टेंपल में जाना, बेस में जाना, डिवोटीज के साथ ज्यादा से ज्यादा समय बिताना, वो अपने आप सब ठीक हो जाएगा। आप बिलीव कीजिए इस फैक्ट को और कृष्णा से प्रेयर कीजिए, एवरीथिंग वुड बी ओके। बट द गुड थिंग इज दैट यू हैव रियलाइज्ड कि कुछ एडिक्शन है, कुछ प्रॉब्लम है, एसोसिएशन में सब कुछ ठीक हो जाएगा। ठीक है प्रभु जी, हरे कृष्णा। तो आप ज्यादा से ज्यादा डिवोटीज के साथ रहिए, कुछ भी एडिक्शन आपको लगी है वो हट जाएगी।
ओके प्रभु जी, श्योर।
एनी फर्दर क्वेश्चंस? कोई और कुछ पूछना चाहता है?
रवि
हाँ,
प्रभु जी
हरे
आप पूछ सकते हो।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी, धन्यवाद प्रणाम।
हरे कृष्ण।
ये साइंस और स्पिरिचुअलिटी ये कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री है एक दूसरे के, क्या ये सही है? क्योंकि हम अगर देखते हैं कि साइंस भी काफी प्रोग्रेस किया है, क्योंकि वीडियो कॉल, अगर हम पहले हमें नहीं पता था कि वीडियो कॉल कैसे होती है या फिर कॉल वाली फीचर्स, ये एक दूसरे एक जगह पे मतलब काफी डिस्टेंस कवर करके हम बात कर पा रहे हैं, पर अभी ये चीजें हर चीज पॉसिबल है और हो सकता है आगे भी जाके कुछ और एडवांसमेंट हो। तो ये साइंस की प्रोग्रेस है। और स्पिरिचुअलिटी में कुछ कुछ चीजें ऐसी होती हैं कि लगता है कि ये तो ऐसा नहीं करना। साइंस और स्पिरिचुअलिटी दोनों को,
मैं बताता हूँ।
दोनों के,
जी जी जी, बोलिए बोलिए प्लीज।
तो ये कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री है क्या?
देखिए, कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री ने नहीं कह सकते, क्योंकि आपने जो बोला अभी, आपने सही बोला कि साइंस एडवांस कर रहा है। जो चीजें कल नहीं थी वो आज है। अब हमें ये नहीं पता कि कल क्या क्या था, क्योंकि अगर आप हमारा वैदिक लिटरेचर पढ़ेंगे तो उस टाइम ऐसी बहुत सारी चीजें थी जो हमने सिर्फ सुनी है, जो अभी नहीं है। उस टाइम उड़ने वाले यान होते थे, एक गैलेक्सी से दूसरी गैलेक्सी में लोग जा सकते थे। तो हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि उस टाइम जो था वो अब उससे ज्यादा अच्छा हो चुका है। अभी तो हम मार्स या मून पे भी नहीं जा पा रहे हैं, और उस टाइम पे नारद ऋषि एक जगह से दूसरी जगह, एक गैलेक्सी से, एक प्लेनेट से दूसरे, एक लोक से दूसरे लोक में ऐसे करके पहुंच जाते थे। तो अभी हम कह नहीं सकते कि हम एडवांस्ड हैं या हम पीछे हैं। बट मैं आपकी बात ये समझ रहा हूं कि साइंस एडवांस हो रही है, वो सही बात है। बट स्पिरिचुअलिटी और साइंस कॉम्प्लीमेंट्री नहीं है एक दूसरे के लिए, बिकॉज साइंस अभी भी इनकम्प्लीट है एंड स्पिरिचुअलिटी इज अ कंप्लीट साइंस ऑफ लव ऑफ गॉड। वो पूरा कंप्लीट है, एक एक चीज का उसमें जवाब है, एक एक चीज का उसमें रीजनिंग है। और स्पिरिचुअलिटी, इट इज द साइंस ऑफ लव ऑफ गॉड, which is the most important thing in this entire cosmos, in manifestation, in this entire universe and other universes. लेकिन जो साइंस है, साइंस अपने आप में अभी भी इनकम्प्लीट है। अभी भी बहुत चीजें, बहुत क्या n नंबर ऑफ चीजें हैं जो साइंस को पता नहीं है। धीरे धीरे एडवांस होती जा रही है। कहाँ तक एडवांस होगी क्या पता चलेगा। अल्टीमेटली जैसे मैंने आपको बताया कि इतने जो साइंटिस्ट्स थे, उन्होंने सिर्फ एक दो थ्योरीज हर साइंटिस्ट ने दी है। जैसे कि आइंस्टाइन ने थ्योरी ऑफ रिलेटिविटी दी, सारी तो थ्योरीज नहीं दे पाया वो, लेकिन जितना भी उसने साइंस में काम किया, अल्टीमेटली उसको समझ में आ गया कि भाई ये सब कुछ बेकार है, भगवान है। देयर इज समथिंग जो चला रहा है वो भगवान ही है। वो भगवान को नहीं समझ पाया, उसने सिर्फ अपनी थ्योरी दी। तो जो स्पिरिचुअलिटी है, इट इज अ कंप्लीट साइंस, वो पूरी साइंस है, लेकिन इट इज फॉर लव ऑफ गॉड। जो ये वाली साइंस है मटीरियल, इट इज अ मटीरियल साइंस एंड इट इज स्टिल इनकम्प्लीट। अभी जैसे आपने वीडियो कॉल का एग्जांपल दिया, कल को हम टेलीपोर्ट हम नहीं कर पाते हैं। जैसे मैं आपसे बात कर रहा हूं, लेकिन मैं आपके यहाँ पे आके आपसे बात नहीं कर सकता। हम सिर्फ एक दूसरे की आवाज या हम एक दूसरे का चित्र देख सकते हैं, लेकिन आप मेरे यहाँ नहीं आ सकते, मैं आपके यहाँ नहीं आ सकता। अभी भी साइंस को उतना एडवांसमेंट की जरूरत है, हम तार के थ्रू नहीं आ सकते। तो ये साइंस एडवांस होती जा रही है, बट दिस इज ओनली अ मटीरियल साइंस एंड विच इज इनकम्प्लीट। लेकिन स्पिरिचुअल साइंस इज अ कंप्लीट साइंस ऑफ लव ऑफ गॉड। तो लेकिन उसके बारे में भी हमें नहीं पता, वो हमें नहीं पता, लेकिन वो अब कंप्लीट है। हमने क्योंकि स्क्रिप्चर्स नहीं पढ़े हैं, मैं ये नहीं कहूंगा स्क्रिप्चर्स नहीं पढ़े हैं, हमने थोड़े से स्क्रिप्चर्स पढ़े हैं। पूरा स्क्रिप्चर्स अभी मेरे ख्याल से भगवत गीता भी पूरी हम में से बहुतों ने नहीं पढ़ी होगी, या जिसने भी पूरी पढ़ी होगी जब भी उसे दोबारा पढ़, इट इज अ फन फैक्ट अबाउट श्रीमद् भगवत गीता, जब भी आप उसको दोबारा पढ़ते हैं एक नई चीज आपको उसमें समझ में आती है। जब भी आप चैप्टर दोबारा से पढ़ते हैं एक नया चीज आपको अपनी लाइफ में होता हुआ दिखता है। तो हमने क्योंकि स्क्रिप्चर्स अभी तक पूरे नहीं पढ़े हैं तो हमें पता नहीं है, बट इट इज इन इटसेल्फ अ कंप्लीट डिटेल्ड स्ट्रक्चर्ड प्रोसेस ऑफ लव ऑफ गॉड। एक एक चीज का उसमें जवाब है, यहाँ से कि आप फास्टिंग क्यों करते हैं, किसके लिए करते हैं, वहां से लेकर आपके कीर्तन का, आपका चैंटिंग का आपके माइंड पे क्या इफेक्ट होता है। आई जस्ट गिव यू वेरी शॉर्ट एग्जाम्पल। देखिए हमें वैष्णव धर्म में बोला जाता है गौ सेवा करना, गाय की सेवा करना। हम सिर्फ गाय की सेवा नहीं करते हैं, हम चिड़ियों को भी खाना डालते हैं, पानी डालते हैं, दाना डालते हैं, कुत्ता होगा उसको भी रोटी डालते हैं। नाउ अब हमें लगता है कि ये तो अच्छे कर्म है। नहीं, ये अच्छे कर्म नहीं है। स्पिरिचुअल साइंस ने बहुत पहले ये समझ लिया था कि ये जो जगत है, ये जो दुनिया है, इसका एनवायरमेंट को सस्टेन करने के लिए सभी जीव जंतुओं का सस्टेन होना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है। चींटी से लेके एक चिड़िया तक सबका सस्टेन होना जरूरी है। इसीलिए हमको बोला गया था कि आप अपने साथ जानवरों का भी ध्यान रखिए, उनको मारिए मत, वो इस एनवायरमेंट को सस्टेन करने के लिए बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है। जैसे बैक्टीरिया है, अगर बैक्टीरिया नहीं होगा तो दही नहीं जमेगी, ये बहुत छोटी सी चीज है। तो स्पिरिचुअलिटी इज अ कंप्लीट साइंस ऑफ लव ऑफ गॉड, बट जिस साइंस की हम बात कर रहे हैं इट इज एन इनकम्प्लीट मटीरियल नेचर्ड साइंस। आप समझ रहे हैं? अभी इसमें और एडवांसमेंट होगी, नया नया चीजें खोजा जाएगा, बट तब भी ये इनकम्प्लीट रहेगी और मटीरियल ही रहेगी।
ये बहुत ज्यादा डोमिनेटिंग लगता है और बहुत अट्रैक्टिव लगता है, और लोगों को आसानी से इस पे बिलीव भी हो जाता है इन सारी चीजों पे। हम
क्योंकि उसको तुरंत, इसमें तुरंत वो मिल जाता है आपको। जैसे आपने वीडियो कॉल किया और मैंने आपकी आवाज और आपको देख लिया, तो जी मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा। लेकिन भगवान को समझने के लिए ये नहीं चलता ना। कृष्ण को समझने के लिए आपको सबसे पहले फेथ होना चाहिए, उसके बाद 10 तरह की चीजें हैं जो आपके अंदर आनी चाहिए। आपकी आत्मनिवृत्ति होनी चाहिए, आपके जो अवगुण हैं धीरे धीरे जाएंगे, फिर आपकी आसक्ति होगी, उसके बाद कहीं जाके आपको भगवान का प्यार मिलेगा जो कि अल्टीमेट है। बस इतना मेहनत हम नहीं करना चाहते, लेकिन जिन लोगों ने कर लिया है उनको समझ में आ गया है कि इसके अलावा आनंदमयी जीवन में और कुछ भी नहीं है। दिस इज द एब्सोल्यूट ट्रूथ। क्योंकि आपका और मेरा जीवन सीमित है, और उसके बाद हम बार बार इसी जीवन को रिपीट करते रहते हैं। बार बार रीबर्थ होता है, कभी इंसान की योनि में, कभी कुत्ते की योनि में, कभी गाय की योनि में, और हम उसी आनंद को पाने की चाह रखते हैं जो कि सिर्फ उसी प्रोसेस से होगा। देखिए हमने वीडियो कॉल कर लिया अपने किसी दोस्त को, मित्र को, सखा को, बहुत खुशी हुई, लेकिन वो खुशी टेम्पररी है और छूट जाएगी। लेकिन जब भगवान को पा लिया वो खुशी, जब भगवान के प्यार को पा लिया वो खुशी परमानेंट है, वो कभी नहीं छूटेगी। लेकिन उसके लिए मेहनत जरूरी है। तो जैसे होता है ना कि बोलते हैं कि आप छोटा छोटा गेन मत देखिए, बड़ा फायदा देखिए। छोटा छोटा रुपया मत उठाइए, बड़े रुपए उठाइए। ऐसे ही ये जो साइंस है, मटेरियल साइंस है, ये छोटा छोटा गेन है, छोटा छोटा प्लेजर है। आज का मजा कल की सजा। तो अगर आपने आज बहुत ऑयली और बहुत घी वाला खा लिया, बहुत मजा आएगा, लेकिन कल सजा मिलेगी, कल कोलेस्ट्रॉल बढ़ेगा। लेकिन भक्ति एक ऐसा योग है जिसको करना कठिन है। योग आसन करना, मन को साधना, भगवान में मन लगाना बहुत कठिन है। लेकिन अगर आपने ये कर लिया तो वो कल का मजा है, वो ऐसा मजा है जो कभी नहीं छूटेगा। जो कि वो जो मलेच्छ थे अमेरिका में, वो LSD पे रहते थे, ड्रग्स पे रहते थे, बहुत मजा आता था। लेकिन जैसे ही उसका नशा उतर जाता था फिर वो बढ़ा जाते थे कि और चाहिए और चाहिए और चाहिए। लेकिन जैसे ही प्रभुपदा ने उनको भजन और कीर्तन सिखाया, जैसे ही प्रभुपदा ने उनको प्रसाद दिलवाया, और जब वो कीर्तन में डांस करने लगे, उनको समझ में आया कि इससे बड़ा नशा और कुछ भी नहीं है। ये रियलाइजेशन की बात है। जिस चीज में आपको अभी मजा आ रहा है, जब आप भगवान के प्रेम में मजा ढूंढेंगे तो आपको समझ में आएगा कि उससे ज्यादा मजा किसी भी चीज में नहीं है। उस टाइम ये मटेरियल साइंस वाले मजे आपको बहुत छोटे और तुच्छ लगेंगे। आपको लगेगा कि ये तो बिल्कुल बेकार चीज थी, मैं इसके पीछे क्यों भाग रहा था, इससे अच्छा तो ये है। तो ये एक्सपीरियंस की हुई चीजें हैं। जब आप कृष्ण के सामने, राधा कृष्ण के सामने कभी कीर्तन पे डांस करते हैं तो उस टाइम ऐसा प्रतीत होता है कि दुनिया में और कुछ भी नहीं चाहिए और इससे अच्छा और कुछ भी नहीं है। बट वो फीलिंग हमारे अंदर है नहीं, बिकॉज ऑफ आर फॉल्ट्स। हमारी जो फॉल्ट्स हैं, चीटिंग प्रोपेंसिटी, ग्रीड, लस्ट, वो उसको अंधकार, उसको धुंधला कर देती है। तो जैसे ही हमारे फॉल्ट्स हमारे अंदर से निकल जाते हैं तो हमें समझ में आता है भगवान के प्रेम से बड़ा नशा और कुछ भी नहीं है, और उसमें ये मटेरियल नशे बहुत छोटे लगते हैं। थैंक यू।
प्रभु जी, वन लास्ट क्वेश्चन।
जी जी पूछिए।
हमें जैसे कुछ लग्जरियस जो लाइफ्स हैं उनको देख के ऐसा इंफीरियर या बैकवर्ड टाइप का ऐसा क्यों फील आता है? जैसे अगर बाय प्रोफेशन मैं मैकेनिकल इंजीनियरिंग कंप्लीट किया हुआ है, फिर भी अगर एक लग्जरियस लाइफ जो देख के, जैसे बड़े अच्छे होटल, 5 स्टार होटल्स वगैरह, या फिर किसी अच्छी पोस्ट पे जो है, उनको देख के लगता है कि यार मतलब एक अच्छी लाइफ है। तो इन सब चीजों के बावजूद भी वो चीजें अट्रैक्ट करती हैं।
क्योंकि ये माया है। माया बनी इसलिए है आपको अट्रैक्ट करने के लिए। देखिए, आप अपनी जगह पे सोच रहे हैं कि मान लीजिए कोई चीज लग्जरी है, आप किसी 5 स्टार होटल को देखते हैं और आप सोचते हैं ये तो बहुत अच्छा है, यहाँ बहुत आनंद आता होगा, मेरे पास ये नहीं है लेकिन ये मुझे अट्रैक्ट कर रहा है। वो बिल्कुल सही चीज है, आप सही बोल रहे हैं, वो माया है, वो आपको अट्रैक्ट करेगी। लेकिन वो जिसका होटल है वो भी किसी और चीज की तरफ अट्रैक्ट हो रहा है। ऐसा नहीं है कि उस होटल वाले को और किसी चीज की चाह नहीं है, आपको उस होटल की चाह है, लेकिन उस होटल के मालिक को या उस होटल में रेगुलरली जो जाता है और लाखों रुपए खर्च करता है, उस आदमी को भी पूरी तृप्ति नहीं हुई है, वो उससे भी बड़ा आनंद ढूंढ रहा होता है। आप सोच रहे हैं कि वो होटल में मैं एक बार जाऊंगा तो मुझे आनंद प्राप्त होगा, वो सही बात है, लेकिन वो आनंद खत्म हो जाएगा। ये आप किससे पूछेंगे? ये आप उससे पूछेंगे जो उस होटल में डेली जा रहा है। वो उस होटल में डेली जाता है, वहां जाके अल्कोहल ड्रिंक करता है, वहां जाके कुछ अच्छे खाने खाता है, बट वो उस आनंद को लेने बार बार वहां आता है क्योंकि उसका आनंद खत्म हो जाता है और वो उससे भी ऊपर वाला आनंद ढूंढ रहा होता है। मैं आपको बहुत छोटा सा एग्जांपल देता हूं। हमारी कंट्री का कोई भी इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट आप ढूंढ लीजिए, चाहे मुकेश अंबानी जी को ढूंढ लीजिए, अभी वो शायद वर्ल्ड में 2nd नंबर या एशिया में 2nd नंबर के सबसे धनी आदमी है, लेकिन क्या उनका व्यापार रुक गया? क्या उन्होंने एक स्टेज पे आके अपना व्यापार रोक दिया? नहीं, वो अपने व्यापार को और बढ़ाते जा रहे हैं और बढ़ाते जा रहे हैं और बढ़ाते जा रहे हैं। उनके पास ऑलरेडी इतनी लक्ष्मी आ चुकी है कि वो 7 पुश्तों तक बैठ के वो अपना घर चला सकते हैं, लेकिन उसके बावजूद भी वो अपने व्यापार को और बढ़ाते जा रहे हैं। आपको जो चीज अट्रैक्टिव लग रही है, जिस व्यक्ति के पास वो चीज है उसको कुछ और अट्रैक्टिव लग रहा है, और उसको भी जो चीज जिसके पास वो है उसको कुछ और चीज अट्रैक्टिव लग रही है। तो ये चीजें, अभी दुनिया में यूक्रेन और रशिया का युद्ध चल रहा है। वो युद्ध क्यों हो रहा है? यूक्रेन भी अपने आप में एक समर्थ देश है, रशिया भी अपने आप में एक समर्थ देश है, लेकिन समर्थ होते हुए भी उनकी चाह कुछ और है, उनको कुछ और अट्रैक्टिव लग रहा है। यूक्रेन को लग रहा है कि मैं नाटो में जाना चाहता हूं, उससे मुझे और फायदा होगा। रशिया को लग रहा है कि नहीं, इसको नाटो में नहीं जाना चाहिए, मेरा घाटा हो जाएगा। समर्थ होते हुए भी उनकी इच्छाएं खत्म नहीं हुई। तो जिस होटल में आप जाना चाहते हो, जो उस होटल में आनंद ले रहा है, वो भी किसी और चीज का आनंद लेना चाहता है। तो जैसे ही आपको, यही हमें माया चाहती है कि हम एक चीज का आनंद लें और उसके बाद उस चीज से तृप्त होकर दूसरी चीज को ढूंढे, फिर तीसरी चीज को ढूंढे, क्योंकि हमारा मन ऐसा बना है कि हमें परमानंद की तलाश है, हमें ट्रू लव ऑफ गॉड की तलाश है, और हम उसी आनंद को ढूंढते रहते हैं छोटे छोटे आनंदों में। लेकिन अगर आप अपनी कड़ी मेहनत करते हैं और कृष्ण पे सब छोड़ देते हैं, तो जरूरी नहीं है कि कल को आप उस होटल में नहीं जाएंगे, आप भी उस होटल में जाके भगवत गीता डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर सकते हैं, और मे बी शायद भोग लगा के कुछ खाना भी खा सकते हैं वहां पे, या रह सकते हैं। ऐसा नहीं है, कृष्ण सब अपने भक्तों का हमेशा ध्यान रखते हैं। आप बस अपना कर्म कीजिए और बाकी भगवान कृष्ण के ऊपर छोड़ दीजिए कि कल को उसको क्या पता उस होटल के मालिक आप बन जाएं या आपको भी वहां रहने का मौका मिले, बट आपका टारगेट वो नहीं होना चाहिए। क्योंकि अगर आप टारगेट वो रखेंगे तो आपको किसी और आनंद की तरफ अट्रैक्शन हो जाएगा, फिर किसी और आनंद की तरफ अट्रैक्शन हो जाएगा। आप बस अपना कर्म कीजिए, आपकी डेस्टिनी में जो होगा वो आपको जरूर मिलेगा।
ओके, थैंक यू प्रभु। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण।
देवांश प्रभु।
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु जी।
हरे कृष्ण।
प्रभु जी, मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि क्या अगर हम किसी की निंदा सुनते भी है तो क्या ये भी नाम के प्रति अपराध है?
निंदा किसकी? भगवान की कि किसी की भी? अपने मित्र की, अपने सखा की?
मतलब
देखिए, जब आप किसी की निंदा सुनते हैं तो वो एक ट्रैप है। वो एक ट्रैप इसलिए है क्योंकि निंदा सुनना बहुत एक आनंद प्रदान करता है आपको। खासकर ऐसे किसी आदमी की निंदा जिससे आपको जेलसी है, या जिससे जो आपसे अच्छा कर रहा है, या जिसके पास आपसे ज्यादा धन है, या जो देखने करने में आपसे आपको लगता है कि अच्छा है, या वो किसी भी चीज से किसी भी प्रकार से आपसे ज्यादा अच्छा है, और अगर कोई उसकी निंदा कर दे तो ह्यूमन नेचर है, जैसे हमने आपको बोला ना, हमारे अंदर फॉल्ट्स हैं। टेंडेंसी ऑफ चीटिंग, प्रोपेंसिटी ऑफ चीटिंग, प्रोपेंसिटी ऑफ मेकिंग मिस्टेक्स, ठीक है। हमारे अंदर एक फॉल्ट है जो कि दूसरों की निंदा सुनना पसंद करता है, जो हमसे बेहतर हैं, जो हमसे अच्छे हैं। तो यस, आपको किसी की निंदा नहीं सुननी चाहिए, क्योंकि जो आपके सामने किसी की निंदा कर रहा है वो किसी और के सामने आपकी भी निंदा करेगा। तो निंदा सुनना ही अपने आप में एक ऐसी चीज है कि आप एक नेगेटिविटी को अपने अंदर आने दे रहे हैं। हाँ, अगर आप अपने कार्य क्षेत्र में या किसी ऐसी चीज की निंदा सुन रहे हैं जो आपके लिए अति आवश्यक है, जरूरी है, जैसे कि आप एक किसी कंपनी में काम करते हैं और आप किसी प्रोजेक्ट रिपोर्ट पे काम कर रहे हैं और किसी चीज के बारे में आपने सुनना है कि जी इस आदमी ने अच्छा काम नहीं किया या इस आदमी ने ये गलत किया, वो आपको सुनना है। दैट इज इन लाइन विद योर ड्यूटी, वो आपका कर्म है, वो बात अलग है। लेकिन एक चुगली करना, निंदा करना, मजे लेना किसी से किसी का सुनते रहना कि हाँ इसने ऐसा किया, इसने वैसा किया, वो आपके कैरेक्टर को और नीचे ले जाता है, जो आपको पता नहीं चलता। आप आज किसी की निंदा सुन रहे हैं और आपको अच्छा लग रहा है, वो आपके अंदर एक आदत बन जाती है। तो इसको आप कंप्लीटली वहीं पे अवॉइड कर दीजिए। अवॉइड नहीं कर सकते तो मत सुनिए, या उसको मना कर दीजिए, या मत सुनिए, या चले जाइए। क्योंकि निंदा सुनना अपने आप में एक गलत चीज है। उसमें आपको एक मायावी आनंद आने लगता है, उसके बाद आप निंदा करने लग जाते हैं। उसके बाद आप किसी अच्छी चीज में अगर सफल नहीं हुए तो आप सबसे पहले किसी और चीज की निंदा करते हैं। आप अपने अंदर की कमी को ढूंढते नहीं है, आप सीधा निंदा करने लग जाते हैं। जैसे हम लोग कभी कुछ खेलते थे बचपन में, क्रिकेट खेलते थे और आउट हो गए, अरे यार ये बैट खराब था यार, अरे यार ये पिच खराब थी, अरे यार इसने बॉल गलत। हम ये नहीं कहते कि हम अपनी गलती से आउट हुए, हम ये कहते हैं कि उसने कुछ किया, इसने कुछ किया। तो हम फिर एक्सक्यूजेस देने लग जाते हैं, जो कि हमारे नेचर को, कैरेक्टर को बहुत वीक कर देता है। अपनी गलतियों को मानना बहुत अच्छी चीज है, अपनी गलतियों को सुनना, अंडरस्टैंड करना, उस पर काम करना बहुत अच्छा है। लेकिन किसी की निंदा सुनोगे तो आप भी फिर निंदा करने लगोगे, और जो आपके सामने किसी की निंदा कर रहा है वो किसी के सामने आपकी निंदा करेगा। तो ऐसे लोगों को मना कर देना चाहिए और अवॉइड करना चाहिए और समझा देना चाहिए कि प्रभु जी प्लीज मेरे सामने किसी की निंदा मत कीजिए, अनलेस एंड अनटिल इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। किसी काम से रिलेटेड है, किसी ने कुछ ऐसा एक्चुअल में कर दिया है जो आपको जानना चाहिए, लेकिन सिर्फ आनंद लेने के लिए निंदा कर रहे हैं और ऐसा कुछ कर रहे हैं, वो बहुत गलत है।
एंड प्रभु जी, मेरा और एक क्वेश्चन था कि जैसे कि हम जानते हैं कि अगर मतलब हरिनाम लेने से जितने भी पाप होते हैं वो मतलब खत्म हो जाते हैं, तो अगर हम मतलब किसी भी जानवर को मतलब गलती से मार देते हैं और फिर मतलब हम हरिनाम ले लेते हैं ये जानते हुए कि अगर मैं नाम ले लूंगा तो मतलब उससे जो पाप है वो मतलब खत्म हो जाएगा, तो ये भी क्या नाम के प्रति अपराध है?
बिल्कुल है। अगर आप जानबूझ के ऐसा कर रहे हैं और ये सोच रहे हैं कि मैंने ये किया और मेरा पाप खत्म हो जाएगा, तो फिर कल को आपको
गलती से अगर हम मतलब मार देते हैं तो
देखिए, अगर आप गलती से मारते हैं और आपने वो रियलाइज कर लिया कि ये गलती से हो गया और आपको उसके प्रति बहुत दुख है, बहुत अत्यंत दुख है, तो आपके अंदर जो भगवान बैठा है, कृष्ण बैठा है, तो उसको उस चीज की समझ है, ये आप उसको डिसाइड करने दीजिए। बाकी आपने कभी कुछ किया, और ऐसा भी है कि आदमी को बहुत सारे जन्मों के बाद किसी पुराने जन्म में किए हुए अपराध की सजा मिलती है, ऐसा भी नियम है। बट भगवान का बहुत बड़ा एक वचन है कि अपने भक्तों को मैं इतना रक्षा करता हूं कि अगर किसी का हाथ कटना होता है तो उसकी उंगली कटती है, अगर किसी का उंगली कटना होता है तो उसका नाखून कटता है। लेकिन वो किसके लिए? भगवान अपने भक्तों के लिए ऐसा करते हैं। और भक्त कौन है? जो भगवान से प्रेम करते हैं। तो अगर आपने ऐसा कभी कुछ किया भी है तो सबसे बड़ी चीज ये है कि आपने वो रियलाइज किया कि ये मैंने गलती से किया। और अगर हो गया गलती से, उसके बाद आपने रियलाइज किया और आपको दुख है उस चीज का, तो आप बिल्कुल भगवान से उस चीज का प्रार्थना कीजिए, माफी मांगिए, क्षमा प्रार्थी कीजिए। और मे बी उसका जैसे एकादशी का व्रत होता है बहुत सारा, वो कीजिए। उसके बाद कृष्ण पे छोड़ दीजिए कि वो क्या करते हैं। क्योंकि आपको तुरंत दंड मिलेगा या नहीं मिलेगा ये आप मत सोचिए, क्योंकि वो बेसिक चीज है। भगवान पे सब छोड़ दो। लेकिन आपने रियलाइज किया आपने गलत किया, आपको उस चीज का दुख है और आप दोबारा उसे नहीं कर रहे हैं। ऐसा नहीं कि हरिनाम ले लिया, अब मैं क्लियर हो गया तो अब मैं दोबारा कर सकता हूं। नहीं, हरिनाम आपने इसलिए लिया, अपने लिए लिया और अपने किए हुए पापों को क्षमा करने के लिए किया, और आगे आप कुछ नहीं कर रहे हैं, वो मैटर करता है। वो फिर भगवान शायद आपकी एप्लीकेशन कंसिडर कर लेंगे कि हाँ, इसने हरिनाम लिया, इसने मेरे को स्मरण किया और अत्यंत दुख के साथ इसने अपने पुराने पापों की क्षमा भी मांगी, साथ में इसका इंटेंशन ये था। वो एप्लीकेशन फिर भगवान के हाथ में है। उनको वो रिजेक्ट भी कर देते हैं बहुत बार उसे साइन भी कर देते हैं या छोटा मोटा दंड दे देते हैं। तो आप निश्चिंत रहिए, अगर आपने उस चीज का प्रायश्चित कर लिया है, आप हरिनाम भी ले रहे हैं, दोबारा ऐसा नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो भगवान जरूर उस चीज पे ध्यान देंगे। वो आपके अंदर ही बैठे हैं, वो दोबारा आपसे ऐसा होने भी नहीं देंगे, आप कीजिएगा भी मत, और आपको उस चीज की शायद दंड मिलेगा भी नहीं। हरे कृष्णा।
अक्षत प्रभु आप पूछ सकते हो।
हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, एम आई ऑडिबल?
जी जी जी।
प्रभु जी, मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि स्टूडेंट लाइफ में वी हैव लेस टाइम टू डू डिवोटी एसोसिएशन, क्योंकि हमें डिवोटी एसोसिएशन करना जरूरी है, तो हम इसे मैनेज कैसे करें, स्टडीज और डिवोटी एसोसिएशन दोनों को?
आप सबसे पहले तो स्टडीज पे ध्यान दीजिए और जितना टाइम आपको मिलता है उसमें कोशिश कीजिए एसोसिएशन देने का। कहीं पर भी ऐसा नहीं है कि अगर आप स्टूडेंट हैं तो आपको 8 घंटे एसोसिएशन में रहना है, ऐसा नहीं है। जब तक आप स्टूडेंट लाइफ में हैं, आपके प्रति आपकी कुछ वो है, आपके एग्जाम्स हैं, आपके प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, वो सबसे ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, आप उन पे ध्यान दीजिए। ऐसा नहीं है कि आप एग्जाम छोड़ के चैंट करने लग जाएंगे, ऐसा बिल्कुल नहीं करना है। आप पूरा ध्यान अपनी पढ़ाई पे दीजिए। उसके बाद जो आपके पास स्पेयर टाइम है उसमें आपको रेस्ट करना है या चैंटिंग करना है या एसोसिएशन करना है। अगर आपको टाइम मिलता है एसोसिएशन का तो कीजिए, नहीं तो सबसे पहले आप अपनी पढ़ाई पे ध्यान दीजिए। लेकिन ऑनेस्टली अगर आप एसोसिएशन करना चाहते हैं तो आपके पास थोड़ा टाइम बचेगा। हफ्ते में 1 दिन, हफ्ते में 2 घंटे, हफ्ते में 3 घंटे। हर दिन आपको 8 घंटे एसोसिएशन में बैठने की जरूरत नहीं है। अगर आप वीकेंड्स में 2 घंटे भी टेंपल जाते हैं या एसोसिएशन करते हैं, दैट इज मोर देन इनफ इफ यू आर अ स्टूडेंट। आप पढ़ाई पे सबसे पहले ध्यान दीजिए, लेकिन एसोसिएशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। जब भी आपको फ्री टाइम मिले आप एसोसिएशन कीजिए, लेकिन पहली प्रायोरिटी आपकी पढ़ाई।
प्रभु जी, लेकिन अगर हमारे पास फिजिकल डिवोटी की एसोसिएशन नहीं होगी तो क्या करें?
कैसे नहीं है? अभी तो हमारे एक प्रभु जी ने बोला ना कि हम वीडियो कॉल में एक दूसरे के साथ रहते हैं। आप और मैं अभी क्या कर रहे हैं? आप और मैं डिवोटी एसोसिएशन कर रहे हैं। आप हर वीक 1 घंटे की क्लास कर सकते हैं। अगर आप टेंपल नहीं जा पा रहे किसी वजह से, तो आप किसी ना किसी क्लास में खुद को एनरोल कर सकते हैं। देखिए, आप मेरे से बातचीत कर रहे हैं, ठीक है? हम दोनों भगवान के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, हम दोनों कृष्णा के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, तो और क्या चाहिए आपको? अगर आप टेंपल नहीं जा पा रहे, आप ये कीजिए। अगर आप ये भी नहीं कर पा रहे, आप भगवत गीता तो पढ़ ही रहे होंगे बीच बीच में, वो भी नहीं कर पा रहे, चैंटिंग तो आप कर ही रहे होंगे, वो भी नहीं कर पा रहे, कीर्तन आप कीजिए, जितना आपसे हो सकता है आप कीजिए। बट जैसे ही आपको समय मिलता है, आपकी छुट्टी होती है, 2 दिन की छुट्टी होती है, आप सबसे पहले टेंपल जाइए, डिवोटीज का संग कीजिए, ठीक है? नहीं हो पा रहा है तो ऑनलाइन तो है ही।
जी प्रभु जी,
ठीक है।
थैंक यू प्रभु जी।
हरे कृष्ण।
थैंक यू वेरी मच। हरे कृष्ण।
एनी मोर क्वेश्चंस?
ऋतुराज प्रभु आप पूछ सकते हो।
प्रभु जी मेरा एक और क्वेश्चन था, जैसे कि हम ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग करते हैं, ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग में जो डिलीवरी मैन आते हैं तो मैं उन्हें मतलब वाटर वाटर मतलब पानी के लिए पानी ऑफर करता हूँ, अगर वो पिए तो अच्छा और नहीं पिए तो मैं पानी ले आता हूँ। लेकिन जब वो जाते हैं उसके बाद मुझे ख्याल आता है कि मैं तो इन्हें हरे कृष्ण बोल बोल पाता है, इससे उनका और ज्यादा कल्याण होता है और उसके बाद दुख लगता है, तो इस अवस्था में क्या करूँ?
कुछ नहीं, आप हरे कृष्णा बोलिए, उनको पानी भी दीजिए, हरे कृष्णा भी बोलिए। वो पिए पानी बहुत अच्छी बात है, नहीं पिए तो भी अच्छी बात है। हरे कृष्णा बोलना बहुत अच्छी बात है। अगर आप राह चलते हुए भी किसी को हरे कृष्णा बोलते हो वो भी बहुत अच्छी बात है। आप जितना बोल सको बोलो, आप जितना लोगों को पानी पिला सको पिलाओ, जितना हरे कृष्णा बोल सको बोलो। उसमें नहीं बोला कोई बात नहीं, अगली बार जब आएगा तब बोल देना। आप जब कहीं कहीं जा रहे हैं, आपको कोई मिलता है, उसको हरे कृष्णा बोल दीजिए, हरि बोल दीजिए। तो जब स्टार्ट करो तब सवेरा, जब उठो तब सवेरा, कोई दिक्कत नहीं। आपको लगता है उसको हरे कृष्णा बोलना है, बोल दीजिए। वो अगर रिस्पॉन्स नहीं करता कोई बात नहीं, दूसरा कोई मिलेगा उसको बोल दीजिए। बट हाँ, थोड़ा सा डिसिप्लिन में रहना है कि हर आते जाते आदमी को बोलेंगे हरे कृष्णा तो उनको भी ऑड लगेगा। जो आपसे वार्तालाप कर रहे हैं, जिनको आपसे कोई संबोधन है, उसको आप हरे कृष्णा बोलते हैं, कोई बात नहीं, बोलिए, अच्छी चीज है। पानी देते हैं बहुत अच्छी चीज है, हरे कृष्णा बोलते हैं और भी अच्छी चीज है। नहीं आप किसी का कल्याण कर पाए कोई बात नहीं, अगली बार जब आएगा तब बोल देना। या भगवत गीता आप उनको दे सकते हैं कि लो ये आपके लिए भगवत गीता है, वो लेते हैं तो ठीक, नहीं लेते कोई बात नहीं।
ओके प्रभु जी।
या कृष्णा का छोटा बुक्स भी आप उनको दे सकते हैं जो सस्ती हैं, या आप उनको ऐसे ही गिफ्ट कर सकते हैं, आपको लगता है कि देना चाहिए आप दे दीजिए। तो अभी आपके पास बहुत टाइम है, बहुत सारे जन्म पड़े हैं, ये इस जन्म में भी बहुत टाइम है बहुत कुछ करने के लिए। आप कभी ये दिल छोटा मत कीजिए कि मैं नहीं कर पाया, आपके पास बहुत सारी चीजें हैं। भगवान आपके अंदर ही बैठ के आपको आइडियाज देते रहेंगे। ये आइडिया भी आपको भगवान नहीं दिया है ऐसा करने का, बहुत अच्छी चीज है। यू डू इट वेरी हैप्पीली टू डू इट।
श्योर प्रभु जी।
चलिए हरे कृष्णा, आई थिंक क्वेश्चंस हो गए हैं सबके। आई होप दैट यू हैव मार्क्ड योर ऑल अटेंडेंस एंड हरे कृष्णा प्रभु जी, थैंक यू। हरे कृष्ण। थैंक यू प्रभु जी। ठीक है, आप सब लोग आप लीव कर सकते हो, यू मे लीव।
दीपू प्रभु जी, क्या आप मुझे होस्ट बना सकते हो, क्योंकि बीच में मेरा नेटवर्क चला गया था, इसलिए मीटिंग इन नहीं कर पाऊंगा मैं असल में, अगर होस्ट ना बनो तो।
मैं समझा नहीं आप क्या कह रहे हैं।
प्रभु जी वो आप होस्ट हो ना, तो आप मीटिंग इन कर देना, क्योंकि बीच में मेरा नेटवर्क कनेक्शन चला गया था, इसलिए आप
एंड कर दूं ना, आप ऐसा कह रहे हैं।
यस प्रभु जी, इन मीटिंग फॉर ऑल।
ठीक है, थैंक यू। हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण।
हरे